You may have noticed that here at High Value Writing, we're all about writing with intention, doing things on purpose in our writing, because that's the best way to build writing confidence. The best way to feel confident and sure about our writing is to know that we've done things on purpose in our writing. So today I'd really like to apply that to the concept of active and passive voice. You may have heard that active and passive voice are all about rules, which one's right or wrong, or which one is better. But the truth is, active and passive voice are just another choice we get to make as writers. There's not necessarily one that's right or wrong. It's just that one will be better for a given situation because, once again, like always, writing is situational. So in this video, we're going to look at three things. First, we're going to talk about the impact of passive and active voice. What are their behaviors? What do they feel like for a reader? That can help us start to think, I wonder which one would be better to use in different situations. Secondly, we'll review how to do it. Make sure we all know the formula for using active or passive and how to transition your words between the two intentionally. And then thirdly, we'll review again some sentences and talk about, well, which one, active or passive, would we want to choose for those different sentences depending on the situation. Let's get started with the impact of active or passive voice on our readers. And so I'll ask you to stand in as that reader for the moment. We're going to put a few examples on the screen, and I'd like you to be thinking about, well, what types of different information do I get from those? And also, what types of behaviors, vibes, moods, tones do they set for you, the reader in this case? And then we'll figure out how to write with them. All right, so first of all, let's say we're having an event in the morning. Actively, we could say, community relations ordered breakfast burritos for the session. Passively, we could say, breakfast burritos were ordered for the session. So we can see already a little bit of different behavior that I'll go over in a moment. A couple more quick examples though. Actively, we could say, Erin made a mistake was made. You can start to see the difference of who gets the focus there and what gets the focus. Third example, HR hasn't announced the news yet. The news hasn't been announced yet. Seeing some of those differences again. And then lastly, security locks the doors at 8 p.m. The doors are locked at 8 p.m. So when we looked through those 8 example sentences, right, 4 pairs of either active or passive, we can see quite a few patterns. With active voice, we notice that the sentences tend to assign ownership and responsibility. They give credit or they give blame. They sound like action is happening, they're direct, they focus on who's doing the action, and they're more concise. A lot of benefits for active voice. That's why we're using it most of the time. Most clear writers want to use that most of the time. However, maybe there are times that you want the advantages of passive voice as well. Passive voice does not say who did it. There's a lack of ownership or responsibility with passive voice, which we usually don't want. Occasionally we might though, as we'll talk about in a moment. Passive sounds more like a description. It's less direct. It focuses on what's being done, not who's doing it, and it's less concise. So we want to keep those patterns in mind as we choose which to use in different writing situations. But that means we need to know how to do it and feel confident that we know how to write in either voice so that we can make that choice. So let me tell you a couple quick formulas you can use. Active or passive voice, it's just actually about the order of your words. It's nothing more complex than that. And so we can all figure that out. To use active voice, the important thing is to just put your doer who's doing something before your verb. So if you have your doer and then your verb, you're using active voice. If you swap the order of your verb and your doer, and now you have your verb before your doer, now you're using passive voice. It could be the same words, just in a different order. So a couple quick examples. We could say the committee interviewed the 5 candidates. Who's doing something? The committee. What are they doing? Their verb, interviewed. So we have doer, verb, we're active. If we wanted to switch that around and put who's doing it at the end, we would then say the 5 candidates were interviewed by the committee. Now we're in passive because the verb of interview happened before the doer, the committee. I'm going to make a quick note here. It could almost start to seem like this sentence was actually active about the candidates because they were in the front. True that we have a noun in the front. However, it's still passive because that is not the noun who's doing things. That's just any old noun. It's not your subject or your doer. What matters here is where is your subject or your doer, and that's the committee, and they're at the end. So that's why it's passive. Another quick example, similarly, the deputy director announced the update yesterday. Active, who's the doer? Deputy director. What are they doing? Announce. We could switch that around and make it passive by saying the update was announced yesterday, or the update was announced yesterday by the deputy director. So you can start to see how passive allows you to include who did it or to skip that towards the end. Let's practice real quickly taking a passive sentence and making it active to make sure we all know how to do that, because usually we want to move from passive to more active. A passive sentence might be something like, it is required by management that we submit 3 samples. It is not a good word to start a sentence with anyway, right? Nobody knows what it refers to. That's also passive because required is the verb. Who's doing the requiring? Management, and they come after the verb. That's why it's passive. So to put that into active, we just put that doer in the front. Management requires us to submit 3 samples. Or, side note, you don't always have to make it about the same doer. You could switch it around if you wanted the sentence to focus on us. We need to submit 3 samples. Now our doer is we, our verb is need, and we're still in the doer-verb order like active voice. So now that we're sure how to do it, let's compare those 4 pairs of examples we started with, and we'll decide which would be better, active or passive, in different writing situations, depending on those behaviors of the 2 voices. So let's start with our breakfast burritos example. I would use community relations ordered breakfast burritos for the session if I wanted to be super clear about who did it, I wanted to give credit to community relations, or I wanted to show that they were helpful, or I wanted to make sure that everything sounded direct and clear for the reader, because guess what? It's actually scientifically proven that active voice is easier to read. So I would use active in all those choices, all those situations. However, I would switch to passive if I really just cared about the burritos. I would say breakfast burritos were ordered for the session. Don't worry, you don't have to pick up breakfast on the way. So we can see how we can purposefully switch active when we want to focus on the good, kind-hearted department community relations who brought us all food, or passive if we really just care about the food itself, that they were ordered and they've been brought to the room. Next one, Erin made a mistake versus a mistake was made. Erin made a mistake provides all the information we need. It's clear, it has ownership, it has accountability. It's that I didn't do something right? So we get more information from the active one, and it's more concise than saying a mistake was made by Erin. However, we might just want to say a mistake was made in some cases. Maybe you don't feel like calling out Erin. Maybe you don't feel like it's productive to point out who did the mistake, but just to say this has happened and now we're all moving forward. That might be a reason to choose passive in that situation. Third example about HR and the news. I would say HR hasn't announced the news yet. If I wanted to focus on HR or who's going to be doing the announcing, or again, keep things as easy as I can for my reader, more concise, easier to digest for the brain with active voice. But if I really just cared about the news, hey, have you heard the news? No, the news hasn't been announced yet. Maybe I'd pick passive, or maybe I don't know who's announcing it. I just want the news. So there could even be a couple cases where I'd want passive there. So as we talk about in all our videos, remember, writing is always situational. It's always about your purpose and intention, and you're making those choices, you're making those calls based on your goal and what's best for your reader. All right, so let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you have further questions and I'll get back to you right away. And if you like what you're learning, please hit like and subscribe, and I will see you next week.